police are held accountable. So I can kind of imagine, and this is what I was told essentially, that the video shows Caz like messing with the towel, like going to the back of his cell where he's hidden. And then the next action is people running in to find his body. And between those two moments, there's about half an hour where nothing happens. And the Thais say that they just deleted that because it shows nothing. So, I mean, I think Americans hopefully would know better than to delete the evidence that like
apparently not
vindicates. Well, yeah, exactly. But that's a different story.
It's a different story.
Very different story. So, I don't know. I don't know what to believe, but I don't want to like attribute to Malice what might have been like ridiculous incompetence.
Yeah, it could be open-ended. Sure.
Yeah. And that's where I left it myself.
But that ended the case because they had Alpha 02. Like what happened? Because he did have other people on the site similarly to Silk Road who at least like reported to him, right?
They have Alpha 02. They took down Alpha Bay. And at this point, they had, as I said, like taken over the second biggest dark web market.
So they
ever.
send everyone there, the Danish
and
one.
just as they planned, like it worked like beautifully for law enforcement anyway, that thousands and thousands of refugees from Alpha Bay flooded into Hansa, the second biggest dark web market, not knowing what had happened. It was all kept secret. I mean, it was a full, I think like days before even it was clear that Alpha Bay had been taken down by law enforcement. People thought it might be an exit scam. People thought it might just be downtime. That happens with websites on the dark web in particular. And so they all flooded into Hansa and registered there. And Hansa had been turned into this just like absolute surveillance death trap for its users because it was completely top to bottom now controlled by Dutch police who had taken the roles of the administrators. And they proceeded to just like do every evil trick they could think of. They had all of these users under their control. It was like such a rare situation. And they really did do everything they could think of to, you're not supposed to be identifiable when you visit a dark website, even for the dark web administrators themselves. But if you turn that dark website into a trap and like change its code,
yeah, they can. They hold the keys. They can do what they want.
Then you can start to set these traps for people, and that's what they did. I mean, they did things like you when you make a dark web drug deal, you are supposed to encrypt your address. But by this point, dark websites had features that would automatically, in theory, encrypt your address for you. But Hansa had been like recoded so that it would record your address before it encrypted it, of course. And
so they got everybody.
They had
them all.
Right. And they even like did a thing where they tricked all the dealers on the site into downloading this file where there was like an icon. The Hansa icon was loaded by pulling the image from a server under Dutch control. So that would like essentially reveal the IP address of everybody who opened that file, like a kind of, beacon, Trojan horse.
Wait, does that get their IP address even if they're using Tor?
Well, that's the thing. Like they would be using Tor to visit Hansa, but then they load this file on their computer and that pulls in the image not over Tor, and therefore it reveals them. So they got like, dozens and dozens of the biggest dealers on Hansa who were coming from Alpha Bay exactly this way. They also like did a thing where they tricked everybody into uploading like new images to the site of their drugs that they were selling, and there was supposed to be like an automatic way of stripping out the metadata that includes the locations sometimes of a photo. And instead, they of course recorded that metadata. So they like all of these different tricks were used to identify the dealers. And over the next, I mean, it's not.
Did they extradite all these guys to the U.S.?
All the dealers?
Yeah.
It's not really clear exactly like what the like how that all of that data, which was collected essentially by Europol. The Dutch police collected this data, then handed it over to Europol, and it gets like fed into like U.S. systems as well. And then it's just like this is such a global operation. There were then like 3 different major busts of dark web drug dealers over the subsequent years with like all these different code names like I forget what they were all called, like Saboteur. They all have like Tor in their clever names, and hundreds of dealers were arrested in these. So it's not they. I think that they almost probably purposely obfuscated which ones were identified through the Hansa operation versus other techniques. But suffice to say that like there was an enormous number of takedowns that followed around the world. I mean, a lot of these people were not extradited; they were prosecuted in their own countries too.
Just a massive success for multiple governments, though. At the end of the day.
I mean, it was also just like the biggest psyop ever performed against the dark web because
That we know of, but yeah.
Sure, yeah. I mean, against, in particular, the drug part of the dark web markets, because it was like you cannot even trust the people in charge of these dark web markets. Like even the like Dread Pirate Roberts of whatever Hansa himself might be a Dutch police officer, and that instilled a lot of fear. It took like a very long time for the dark web markets to recover from all of that chaos and paranoia.
See, we know about like, for example, the dirty DEA cop and the dirty Secret Service cop, Forrest and Bridges from the Silk Road case. Like, there's some that obviously become a part of the story, but I'm always curious with all these sites how many people were unknowingly doing it on behalf of an organization. Like, I will tell you, one place my head goes with like Alpha O2 is that he was an agent for somebody doing something. Like, it's possible, at least,
Certainly. I mean, I talked to the prosecutors and all the agents who led that case, and I don't know. I spent enough time with them that I don't believe they're lying when they say that they actually intended to extradite Caz to the U.S. and flip him if they could. They were going to they wanted to turn Alpha Bay, or at least probably they had already taken down Alpha Bay, but to turn Alpha O2 into an incredible informant,
right,
and use that to do other kind of like stings and traps, but he was dead. So and they really saw that as a huge disappointment. I mean, I don't know if Caz was killed or who would have killed him, but I don't believe actually that the U.S. DEA and prosecutors and FBI and IRS, like Tigre and Gambarian, any of them would have wanted him dead. They wanted him on Team USA, as they say.
That actually makes sense.
Yeah.
So it could have been with someone else.
But you're absolutely right that like they wanted him to be the kind of asset that you're talking about, but unfortunately for everyone, he died. Whew. Yeah, and so as you say, like was there something extra that was not legal about like the way that they got to his server? Maybe that might have come up at trial, but he never had a trial. He was dead.
Thank you for watching the video, guys. Please hit that subscribe button and check out this clip's full podcast episode by clicking here or in the description below.